All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tarshawn Kane. I am the executive director of the Black Principals Network. Most recently, I was the contract principal of Joseph Lovett Elementary School, where we still love it. And I welcome you to Shades of Impact. During this time, we are going to have a really deep conversation and dialogue about Black school leadership, the impact of the past 2 years, the pandemic, the racial reckoning, all of that, what it has done to school leaders, and what our hope is moving forward. Who will have joining us today? I'm so excited. Is my fellow principal, Con Fellow from 2021, Principal Jasmine Thurman of King Elementary School will be here to join in the conversation. So let's welcome her in.
Hey, hey.
Jasmine,
S-
hi.
Hey, so good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, welcome to Shades of Impact.
Thank you for the warm welcome.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here so we can have this real conversation about what Black school leadership looks like, and the impact that we have had over the past 2 years. But before we begin, I just want to give you a little moment to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So I am Jasmine Thurmond. I am the principal at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Academy of Social Justice. We are a small but mighty neighborhood school in the community of Inglewood, and I am so grateful for this opportunity. This is my sixth year in the principalship here at King, and uh, some of these lessons, honey, that I have learned, especially in these last couple of years, have been incredible, and I am just eager to talk to you and share them with others.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I too understand it has been a journey. So yeah. So just I know we have some questions that we kind of outlined to just guide the conversation, but if we land somewhere that kind of feels good, then we'll just see where that journey takes us as well. Is that okay?
I got you. We'll
All
we'll,
right.
we'll get in where we fit
We'll
in.
get in where we fit in. Perfect. All right. So just to start the conversation, we're going to start here. It is 2020, okay? 2020. Pandemic begins. Like pandemonium everywhere, right? And then you have the George Floyd murder, which sparks a whole new trauma, a whole new movement, a whole new sensation. Take us through your lived experience.
Yeah. So, I was thinking about this question when you sent them over to me, and I remember distinctly. So if you were a leader in Chicago public schools at that time when the pandemic hit,
Mhm.
you probably had a similar experience to this. So around March 10th, 2020, you started to see on the news that other school districts were going remote.
Yes, ma'am.
However, we weren't receiving any word as to what was going to happen with CPS. And so I distinctly remember uh, students and staff members asking me, Principal Thurman, are they going to close schools? Well, I've never lived through a pandemic before. So my response is,
Mhm.
I don't think so. Chicago public schools, we only close when it is like 30 below zero, right?
Yes.
Um, but little did I know that on March 13th, as I'm walking out the door at about 4:30, I got that notification that
Mm.
we were going to be remote for 2 weeks. And so the protests, the George Floyd protests here in Chicago, started May 28th. And it went over the course of a weekend. And so, as I said, when I was thinking about this question, I was like, you know what? Let me just whip out my journal because I know that I journaled about the significance of this incident. And so I just want to read a little bit of that for you.
Have your way.
So the day, it's Sunday, May 31st. Today, I drove around my school and my heart was broken for my
Mm,
kids, for their families, for their community, for my community, and for me. How do I help us pick up the pieces? My eighth graders have already come for their drive through graduation appointments, but I don't know what to say when I see them again. My boss called an optional meeting this evening, but I'm still confused. I don't even know what to say to my teachers tomorrow. I hope they don't say the wrong thing to my students. Hell, I hope I don't say the wrong thing. I wonder if any of them went over there today or drove over there like I did this weekend. I wonder if they saw our parents and students grabbing boxes from various stores. I wonder if they saw our parents and students removing boxes from the liquor store on the corner like I did too. I wish my grandparents were alive so I could ask them about the riots and protests in the 60s, but they're not. And so all I can ask is that they put something on my heart. God, please give me the peace to sleep tonight and give me the strength to lead tomorrow. That
mm,
was my journal
mm.
entry on uh, Sunday, May 31st. After the events culminated that weekend, and I just like most other leaders, I was so confused and so
Mhm.
conflicted.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember similar situations. I live in Chicago, about an hour 15, hour 30 minutes from where I work. Okay, that's a story for another day. But I remember even though schools were closed, they weren't closed for us, right? So you had to drive through. Um, I drove through many communities. And for me, it was seeing the difference as I went from communities that look like mine, communities that serve people that look like me,
Yep.
communities that didn't, right? And I remember being conflicted as well. And the big thing that I always wondered, I honestly was grateful, and this sounds weird, but I was grateful that my grandmother was not present to see this. Okay.
Mm,
'Cause she had just passed in January, both of them, one January, one in, April. So I was kind of glad that she hadn't seen that because of I didn't want her reliving the trauma from
mm-hmm.
when she was younger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, when we're thinking about this, um, I wanna how do you think that experience was different because you were a Black leader?
Yeah. So you know, there's always a black tax, right? That we experience, right?
Yeah.
And so being a school leader, I being a black school leader, I always feel compelled to prepare students and to empower my staff to prepare students to navigate the worlds that they live in, right?
Yes.
Because it
Mhm.
ain't just one.
It's
And
not.
so I felt so conflicted because I understood the why for some folks, right? Because we know some of them people just, yep, they had a field day, right? But but many of our folks were so hurt and so frustrated and so full of emotion that the manifestation of their trauma, right, it came in the form of what we saw on the streets. It
Yeah.
came in the form of the protests, and uh, my the name of my school is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Academy of Social Justice, right? So uh, I have to give space to the emotions and the feelings and the experiences that that led my people, right, my community to get to this point of protesting, rioting, and looting, right? And I'm using those words, right? I know
Mhm.
there's some feelings behind some of those, but um I I absolutely have to give honor to that and acknowledge that. But in the same right, I have to ensure I don't push my values onto my students, right? It doesn't matter whether or not I would do what what was done, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. Um, yeah, none of that matters. What mattered was the fact that when I drove past my, the area where my school is, I saw multiple parents of students from my school running with potentially stolen items, right? And their children were in tow with items as well, right? So as a school leader, I then have to think about, okay, how do I ensure my teachers say the right things to students because they are as impacted as I am, right? And it was such a heavy weight,
Mhm.
right? I also felt the weight to say something, right?
Mhm.
Not knowing what to say, not wanting to say the wrong thing, uh, but again, understanding that it's not about pushing my values in this moment. It's about leading my community,
Yeah.
and that leadership was so heavy. That morning of June 1st, having to face my
Mhm.
staff virtually, it was so heavy. And so, Black leaders, we experienced things a little differently
Mhm.
during that time, and I'm so grateful that I was able to lean on some of my colleagues and say, "Hey, what are you saying to your staff? Do you have a statement or anything prepared?" um, because I just needed help, and I didn't know where to get that help from.
Mm.
Um, and so much of my time was spent searching myself for answers that I never even really came up with, and there were so many feelings of inadequacy,
Mm.
so many feelings of confusion, defeat, isolation. It was a very painful time because for folks who had been in the role for some time and had experienced success, this was like one of those points where it's like, okay, there's no prior experience that can help me navigate this, and um, there's no guidance that can help me get through this. I've got to figure it out.
Wow. So there's a couple of things that I'm put a push pin in. We're going to come back to later, and it's really on that feeling of inadequacy because I think that is something that is so often overlooked. But thinking about my response to that would be when I'm thinking about how it was different for Black school leaders. What resonates with me was the fact that I was fortunate enough where I was in a fellowship for Surge at the time, and they supplied us, Chicago team, whoop, whoop, they supplied us with a couple of resources to help us synthesize what was going on. And I'll be honest, I shared those with my school community. I would do memos on Sunday, and they always had something inspirational, some food for thought, things like that in there. But what I found, not just due to the racial reckoning, but even with the pandemic, which has, let's be very honest, disproportionately impacted the communities that serve people that look like us, right? Our Black and brown babies. So for me, it was number one, we're going to pause. We're not going to pretend like this is business as usual. And I had to give my staff permission to do that and to be present in what was happening. You know what I mean? Like give them the space to like actually feel
Yep.
because I didn't feel like I could, like, right? And that
Yep.
that kinda goes back to what we carry in Black school leadership, like
Mhm.
this, "We're not human. We have to be here all the time. We have to do all the things. We have to show up
Yep.
regardless." I was the poster child for that, thank you for deliverance. But, you know, for me, it was I had to lead my staff when I did not know how I really felt. It
Absolutely.
was a heavy year for me, period. So you add that on top of it, and it was just like, Lord, like you said, give me the strength, give me the words.
Yeah.
Like that literally is what how I led. I led with my heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I took those resources and I went and I was like, I sent them a memo like, pause, not pause in instruction, but I want you to give my baby space to talk about what they are experiencing and how they feel. Let's do some healing circles within our school community so that we can acknowledge that this is something that this stuff going on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And your feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid. And you want to kind of model for your staff and for your students that there's space for you to be human. We're going to use this as an opportunity to kind of build and pivot, build on what we talked about, but kind of, pivot to another layer of the question. So let's just talk about how has the principalship role changed? Okay. As
Oh,
a
Jesus.
as a result, right? As a result of everything that has happened in the last 2 years, I know myself, well, it was recent, like, okay, up until February of this year, that is the role in which I serve. So I can speak a little bit for how it changed too, but I know there have still been changes after I left. So, how has the role changed as a result of what has happened? Come on, Jay.
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about this.
He's digging in.
So, so the role has changed immensely,
Mhm,
uh, just in several ways. So one is, uh, we as school leaders now have to be like logistics and operations experts in a way that we did not have to be prior to the pandemic. Um, it's insane how many how many aspects of our work are now focused on operations.
mhm,
Now luckily the cases of COVID has dropped dramatically,
mhm,
and the protocols that school districts abide by have become a little more relaxed, but it there's so many plans that a school leader has to create.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
uh, I have to
Yeah.
create a plan for if everybody is in person. I got to have a plan for if the teacher
Mhm,
tests positive, but the kids don't test positive.
mhm,
I have to have a different plan if the teacher and the kids test positive. I have to have a different plan if some of the kids test positive, but other kids can still come in the building, right?
yeah.
Um, I have to have a plan to engage families in person and virtually still, right?
Mhm.
And let's talk about families, right? So
Let's talk about it.
the pandemic got everybody a little bit off their rocker, right? me
Right.
me included.
Yeah.
And so just understanding how easily triggered family members are, and how easily triggered just people are in general.
Mhm,
We have to provide a level of customer service
mhm,
in our work that is far more intentional than what was needed in years past. On top of the fact that school districts have realized, hey, we don't even have to bring everybody together anymore. Let's just send out this link. Hey, y'all, we got a meeting tomorrow at this
mhm.
time. We don't care what was on your schedule. Be there. It's mandatory, right? So we're getting pulled in so many different
Yeah.
directions, in addition to still being expected to serve as the instructional leader. Um, in addition to ensuring that um, high quality instruction is taking place, um, in addition to just managing staffing. S
Mhm,
uh, along with so many of my colleagues, we're just trying to figure out how to ensure that our buildings are staffed
mhm.
daily, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So before you can talk about the quality assurance of the instruction, we first have to have the people in place. And uh, people are leaving in droves, and so the work has it has changed immensely. And I want to ensure that I don't sound as if I'm complaining, because I'm not. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity that I have to continue to lead my
Yeah.
school.
Mhm.
But the work looks so much different. The even the quantity of paperwork, it looks different.
Yeah.
It looks different. The demands are intense, and we're expected to like deal with all of the other stuff that I just talked about, as well as accelerate student learning, right? And figuring out,
Accelerated.
accelerate it.
Accelerated.
So we got to figure out what that is, and we have to constantly refine it, in addition to planning for that next piece. And so my mom, every time I start to talk to my mom about, mom, I got to do this, and then the third, she's like, yeah, well, that's why they pay you the big bucks. And I'm like, look, I'm making minimum wage.
Are they big though? Like, are they big?
If you
Are they
calculate how many hours I'm working,
big? Exactly.
I'm out here
Exactly.
really, slumming it. But
Yeah.
the work has changed a lot. It really has.
So I'm in full agreement with you. I would say that the role changed drastically once once the pandemic happened, and what school leadership looked like was like a complete 180. So you went from being an instructional leader, and let's be honest, like we have always been, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. They're like, I got you.
it's the
Uh,
overlay for the underplay.
so, but no, the role has transformed so quickly and so abruptly. So I'm gonna take you back to like even just thinking about as the pandemic began, we had to do first give the grace. Then now you have, I know in Chicago, we have very seasoned teachers, right? Who may not be as technology savvy, but now we have virtual learning plans and re-engagement plans and remote learning plans. And then having to the biggest thing for me was in communication, right? Lack
Yeah.
of, or the need to over communicate everything. I do remember there were times, and they did change it, but I do remember there were times when I was watching the news and my teachers were texting me like, "So, what are we doing for tomorrow?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm waiting to see, just like you." You know what I mean? So
I'm waiting for the
I'm
guidance.
waiting for the guidance, right? And so but you still have to lead in the middle of that, right? You have to lead through that. And like you said, if you are somebody that had a reasonable sense of success, right, before this, then you're feeling so inadequate.
Hmm.
And that does something to you because you're like, I'm supposed to be able to lead this, but I've never led through anything like this.
Yeah.
But everybody's looking to you for the answers. What
Hmm.
what what people don't recognize is like, yes, there are higher ups, but the principals, the school leader, like at the end of the day, they get it from down here, but they get it. They're the person in the middle. You are the supreme middle man
Yep.
or woman or
Yep.
person, right? You're the person in the middle that gets it from on high and then also from on low. So you have to be very open in the ways in which you communicate. And you also have to think about your community when you are communicating.
Yep. Because you got to filter all of that, right? So, like, you can't go to your parents and teachers and students and say, so the district said, we doing this, that, and the third, right? Like, you can't do that, especially with the same sense of urgency, right? So
Yeah.
the district told me 2 hours ago that I need to have this for, by first thing tomorrow morning, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can't say that, but you also have to ensure that all stakeholders understand that sense of urgency too.
Yeah. And you have to, but you have to get it done, right? So
Mhm.
what that means and what that looks like is that the school leader is taking on a whole lot of extra so that nothing gets in the way of instruction, or so that teachers can be in front of kids, or so communities can feel a part. So you're doing some things that may have just come to you
Yep.
so that you can get it done and people can do what really matters, and that is, serve our students.
Yep. So I wanna speak to that that piece you said, like we feel like we have to get everything done. Before I start speaking to that, I'm a principal. I'm in a school. The school bell is about to ring in just a little bit. So just so you all know, you might hear it, and I'll just take a quick pause. But uh, I think this pandemic has taught us, and this experience has taught us that as Black folks, especially Black leaders, we have to become master evaluators of priorities.
Mhm.
Because the reality is, uh, everybody else will make us feel like we have to do it all.
Mhm.
And as Black women,
Come on.
we know how that this this tax, right, of being a Black woman who's expected to be superwoman and have Black girl magic, like we're expected to bear it all. um and there is no room for us as Black leaders to or we feel that there's no room to
Mhm.
fail. But what we have to come to terms with is we have to preserve self
Mm.
first, because if we don't preserve self, there's nothing left for the kids or the communities that we serve. And
Yes.
so I'll tell you, like, for me, that was the biggest lesson I learned. Like, you know what? I'm not going to do everything well. That's
Mhm.
cool. I feel like I'm supposed to do it all, but hey, 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 Jasmine, chill out, slow up, because you're going to burn yourself out.
Mm.
And then they going to have somebody in your seat
Come on.
24 hours later,
Yeah,
right?
yes, 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 they will. They
And
definitely will.
and so but here's the thing though. In addition to us as Black women and just Black leaders combating this feeling of having to be a supernatural force,
Mhm.
we know that we also deal with imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
So you have these binary oppositions really competing in your mind and in your heart, saying you got to do everything, or else they're gonna look at you like you crazy,
Mhm.
right? And then you have this other piece telling you you're not worthy of
Mm.
being in this seat,
Mm.
right? Just go, wash your hands of it, throw in the towel, right? And both of those things have such an impact on you that can really just tear you down, right?
Mm.
And there's so many people who I've seen that, like, them being broken down from the pandemic due to imposter syndrome, superwoman or superman syndrome, um, because it has been really hard to negotiate those priorities. And I'll tell folks, I don't have kids, right? I can't imagine being a parent and a Black school leader
Yeah.
over these last couple of years. I can't even imagine.
So let me trump you a little bit. Be a parent and be pregnant, okay? Over the past 2 years. Yeah, it is different. And I kinda wanna talk to you about something that you said, because I know that we are gonna have to wrap up very soon, but I kind of want to talk to you about something that you have said, which is that you have this feeling that you're not worthy or anything like that. Even if you don't have the feeling that you don't deserve to be here and you're not worthy, the actual feeling, oftentimes your actions and what you're doing is to prove that you deserve to be here. Not you don't think that you, it's like, if I do these things, then I am proving that I deserve to be here. So that is often what we find as Black school leaders is that we are shouldering the brunt of it all. You want to be the counselor, you want to be the teacher, you want to show up and be the leader that you wish you had, right? You want to be there for everybody else. And what ends up happening, and I can just speak from my own personal experience, is that people always, and I say this all the time, people always mention like, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup and you have to do this and you have to choose yourself and all that great stuff. I was pouring from a cheese grater. Like literally nothing was everything that came into me, it went it went to everybody else because I did not have healthy boundaries. So that kind of leads us to how we're going to wrap up today, which is our hope moving forward. And for me, it is in the Black Principals Network. Shameless plug, but not, no, seriously, like in creating that space for people that went through and are experiencing the same thing, where you have that place where you feel seen, you have that place where you can get resources, you have that community where you can share ideas, you have that space to help you navigate some of the barriers that exist, and also that reminder to prioritize self care and mental health because nobody looks out for us.
No,
So we have to.
absolutely.
So up to you. What is your hope moving forward?
My hope moving forward is that we as Black leaders enter into our future, enter into tomorrow, prioritizing self,
Come on.
right? Um, and but also understanding that everything we need to thrive and heal ourselves and grow ourselves, it's within our community,
Come
right?
on.
So I mean, even when we talk about like the Black Principals Network, it's something that is so critical for school leaders right now, uh Black school leaders, because we have to be able to help each other grow and sustain
Yes.
and keep our priorities intact. um and so yeah, I hope that we are able to prioritize self, because as long as we prioritize self, we'll be able to sustain, we'll be able to manage, and we'll be able to continue to save not even save our communities, because I don't believe our communities need saving, but we'll be able to continue investing in our
Mm.
communities, right, with our time and our talent and our treasures. That's my hope for
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. Oh gosh, thank you. And also even thinking about for our school communities, what is our hope for, like what I hope that the lessons that districts have learned, lessons that you have to invest in your people, that you have to allow them space to be human. I hope that the grace that we extend to our staff and our students, that is also not laid on us. I mean, that it is
Hmm.
also it finds rest on us as well,
Yes.
and that we find time or space to invest in people that will coach our leaders through difficult times because they're not teaching this in school.
They're not teaching it. and
They not. Go
and
ahead.
and there's no amount of accountability you can put in place
Mm.
for a person, a group, an entity that's going to get them to have true impact when they are not cared for.
Ooh, man, I want to talk to you some more. I know we have to wrap up, but maybe it'll be a second series because this is some good conversation. But I do thank you, and I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you all for coming and staying with us, even in spite of our small technical difficulty. Any event that you are a Black school leader, I am asking that you complete the form to join the Black Principals Network. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Um, I appreciate it. And we have to do more of this, getting our voices heard, because it's time for people to stop speaking for us when we're the ones in the work.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jasmine.
I appreciate you.